And just don't forget to mute yourself. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's live session. I'm Radhika Kakkar. I'm a therapist at MindSmith. And today we are going to discuss a topic that affects many of us, the impact of anxiety and chronic stress on lifestyle disorders. So, what exactly is or are anxiety and chronic stress? Anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease about something with an uncertain amount. For example, right now I'm very anxious because whatever I'm going to be talking about, I'm not sure if it will be reaching all of you the way I want it to. Or a very common example would be a person going through a job interview, or when you want to confront a friend about how their behavior has been something that you have not been a fan of recently. Okay. So then there's chronic stress, which is a constant feeling of being overwhelmed or pressured over a very long period of time. For example, I have a friend who works around 13 hours on a daily basis in a very normal top tier corporate company. She has no time for herself. She's in front of the screen at least 10 hours daily. Even on her days off, she's prepping presentations and going through documents. She just doesn't have time for herself. So, all of that prolonged amount of screen time, always stressing about her job, taking meetings, and having no time for herself, it will have an effect on you. She's only 25 and she has certain physical illnesses which were only observed in people over 40 before. But nowadays, I guess it's becoming normal being in a high stress environment continuously and how it affects on your hormones, the amount of stress you endure. Um, it will affect the types of disorders you take in. So, how exactly does it affect us? So, when we are anxious or stressed, our bodies react. This is known as the fight or flight response, which is useful in short bursts of time, but harmful if it is becoming a constant state. Over time, it can lead to lifestyle disorders. So, how does this affect us in physical way? So, for example, chronic stress and anxiety can lead to increased heart rate and high blood pressure. Over time, this can strain the heart and increase the risk of heart disease. For example, a person going through chronic stress might develop hypertension, which can be a leading cause for heart attacks and strokes. Then there's cortisol, which is the stress hormone. It can weaken our immune system, making us more susceptible to infections and illnesses. So, for example, a lot of autoimmune diseases are caused due to stress. A lot of skin disorders or just metabolical disorders are coming out just because you're extremely stressed. It also has an effect on your digestive system. Nowadays, whoever I do talk to has some sort of gastrointestinal issue, especially the most common one is IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. Okay. So it's a common experience in feeling butterflies in your stomach before a stressful event, which can lead to more severe gastrointestinal problems over time. It's not only because of anxiety and stress, it could be because of your genetics or your sensitivities or even the food you're having, sleep you're having. But yeah, stress is a very big leading cause. There are other effects which are not just physical, such as the mental effects are cognitive function. Uh, Anxiety and chronic stress over a period of time, it impairs your cognitive function, such as memory, concentration, and decision making. We all have been there. We have been a student who has been under a lot of stress, and we tend to have difficulty in focusing on our studies, or especially when we are giving an exam. For me, as a person with anxiety, I've had anxiety for a prolonged period of time. And I got to know that anxiety could be a leading cause for people who tend to stutter, who tend to forget vocabulary, may even mispronounce, and have communication issues. So it not only impairs your memory and concentration, but also how you speak, how you perceive, your focus, the decisions you make. And it also um, leads you to feel helpless. You feel a tendency of sadness and depression, even. For instance, someone experiencing chronic stress at work might begin to feel overwhelmed and emotionally drained, which will lead to burnout. The most common effect of stress and anxiety is the thing that it affects the most is sleep. A person who has an interview in the morning may have very little sleep, or after a big fight with your partner, you tend to just lie awake all night. You might be worrying about the future, you might be worrying about what you said or how they perceived it. It does lead to chronic fatigue and it decreases your overall health. Not only does stress and anxiety have an effect on your cognitive function and your um, emotional health, but it also has an effect on your behavioral effects as well. Matlab, the way you cope with stress, meaning people often turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms to deal with anxiety and stress. This might include overeating, smoking, drinking alcohol, or it could also be going towards excessive shopping or just staying awake rather than sleeping, or because you can't relax. It's just a way of coping. For example, some people might start smoking to calm their nerves, but which will lead to addiction and other health problems eventually. Anxiety and chronic stress can decrease our productivity at work or school. For instance, a person might find themselves procrastinating and unable to complete tasks on time, affecting their job performance and career progressions. Anxiety and stress, they can strain our relationships with our family and friends. A person who might feel a lot of anxiety, they might also feel a lot of loneliness or feelings of isolation. For example, someone might cancel their plans frequently because they feel too anxious to socialize, leading to misunderstandings or weakening support systems as well. So, this was anxiety and chronic stress. But what is lifestyle disorders exactly? So, lifestyle disorders are diseases linked with the way people live their life. These are often a result of unhealthy habits and stress, of course. Um, Certain common disorders include obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. So, for example, a person who works in extreme stress environments, they can cope with the stress through depending on unhealthy habits, such as eating junk food or avoiding movement or having extreme screen time, which will also affect the sleep cycle. But you have to also remember that lifestyle disorders happen over time due to a number of reasons. Telling a person ki eat better or eat less and all of your problems will go away. That won't do. Understanding the reason behind their binge eating or why they're choosing the food that they are, the emotional burden, when it's not released, it will find a way out. It will find release through harming oneself in ways which won't seem harmful at the first glance. But in the long run, it will exhaust you to nothing. Sleep and screen time, it has a very strong relationship, especially nowadays. The way we use technology, it was made for making our lives easier, sure. But is it harming us more than it is actually giving us positive results? That's still a question. There are a lot of researches that have been going on. A lot of people complain of not being able to sleep because they're always on their phone or on the laptop or after a long day of work in front of the screen. They might have a lot of eye strain. Their mind or their brain just has issues turning off, basically. Not being able to detach oneself from work or what causes you stress means you're having difficulty in marking your boundaries, which will also affect the balance between your work and your personal life. Lifestyle factors can also influence your hormonal levels. It impacts your metabolism, your mood, and your overall health. It's not always just food or just sleep or just the non movement. It's a product of all these ingredients. Chronic stress response or the hyperactivity of a flight or flight response is like a balloon which is pumped with air beyond its need. It will burst one day. Most of us can already have a genetic predisposition to a disorder, which will get triggered after prolonged exposure to anxiety and stress. There's another factor when it comes to lifestyle disorders, which is researched but not as much when it comes to extreme traumatic events or childhood traumas or extreme stressful events and how they're linked to lifestyle disorders. We have to talk about it a lot. A lot of events which were very highly stressful in nature have an effect on your sleep, have an effect on how you eat or you don't eat or you overeat. It has an effect how you cope. You might use substances to cope. You might use people to cope. But all of these habits, all of these reactions are coming or stemming from an event which happened to you maybe many years ago and still not talked about. So, lifestyle disorders, again, it's not just food, it's not just sleep, it's not just your bad habits. It's an, again, it's a meal with a lot of ingredients. There are certain tips that you can use to manage your anxiety and stress to prevent lifestyle disorders, such as mindful breathing, physical activity, healthy eating, sleep, and relaxation techniques. So, breathing is quite, I mean, everyone breathes, of course. We have to be quite mindful about it. You have to know, you have to sit in a place where you can actually hear yourself, you can actually stay in the moment. You have to focus on your breathing to calm yourself down, to calm your heart rate down. You have to ground yourself and understand that all of your body is in reality. Most people who go through extreme stressful events or have been stressed throughout the day, they might have this detachment from their own body. They might they might use their hands and legs, but they're not really connected to them. So mindful breathing or grounding really helps with that. Physical activity could be anything. It could be just a simple 20-minute walk. It could be dancing on your favorite music, or it could be yoga. It could be anything. It could be just stretching. But having that physical activity, it will help you because as people, as human beings, we were more used to moving around than sitting down. We were more used to being outside more than 10 hours a day than being inside 10 hours a day. So we have to find a balance. We have to use our body the way it was meant to be used rather than um, using the necessities or the luxuries that we have right now. Then there's healthy eating. Of course, it's easier to fall on sugars and sweets and anything which is easily available, which is not cooked or takes more than 30 minutes to make. But having a balanced diet with plenty of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, it's really important for you. You will end up with a lot of deficiencies, which do end up having an effect or may lead to a lifestyle disorder or some sort of disorder. Then there's sleep. Again, sleep is something that you cannot be compromising. And when I say sleep, you have to focus on quality sleep. Having 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep every night, it's very important. And I don't mean sleeping around 1 or 2 a.m. and sleeping for 8, 9 hours. That's not the sleep that your body needs. It doesn't, um, our body has a particular sleep cycle, it has a circadian rhythm that our body follows. And if we are not sleeping around 8, 9, sorry, 9, 10, 11 p.m., we won't have the quality sleep that we really need. Then there's relaxation techniques. It could be really anything, anything that works for you, that you know how to ground yourself or relax yourself in a stressful situation wherever you are, just to calm your mind. It could be drawing, sketching, coloring, going for a walk, listening to music, meditating, anything really. These tips are not just for people who have lifestyle disorders, but also people who are predispositioned towards lifestyle disorders. But if you are someone with or without lifestyle disorder and suffer from anxiety or stress in a way that you're not able to cope with, you should be reaching out and talking to a professional. Remember, it's important to take care of your mental health by managing your stress and anxiety. Anxiety and stress nowadays, it's like common cold. You have to know how to manage it. You have to know how to cope with it. So it doesn't end up being something bigger than it is. Okay. I would actually like to ask some questions. I would actually like to ask anyone over here if they have experienced chronic stress or stress for a very prolonged period of time and how it has affected them, their health, maybe physical or mental, emotional.
Hi, Radhika.
Hi, Nisha.
So, yes, I don't know if it was chronic stress or not, but I definitely used to be stressed during my exams, and
Mm-hmm.
I also used to experience a bit of somatic symptoms, like I used to feel a bit pukish because of that. So yeah, it has been a bit stressful for me because I think I do have some exam stress kind of thing.
Okay, that does sound like a lot of anxiety. And yeah, exams can be quite stressful.
Yeah, they are.
Has anxiety ever affected your relationships or the way you talk to people or talk to yourself?
Definitely, I think anxiety makes you look down upon yourself a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, when it comes to relationships, also, I think there's always this sense of inferiority that maybe somebody else is doing better than I am. So, I think that's where the anxiousness also stems from, to do better, to work more. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to share anything if they have seen anyone with lifestyle disorders and how it has impacted their mental health? Yes, Mehak.
Hi Radhika. I actually
Hi.
wanted to share about, I think this was also one of the only and very common universal experience that all of us was going through. That was during the COVID times. I think during the COVID times, the peak of anxiety with regards to getting COVID or your family members getting affected by it was so
Mm-hmm.
much that everything went for a toss. Like our lifestyles went for a toss. We didn't know what we were eating and how at what time we were sleeping because everybody was inside their house. They were watching movies late at night or trying to like just do things to pass time
Mm-hmm.
without really keeping a track of our day to day life. And then of course the entire COVID and the health related issues mixed with all of it, I think it was one of the things that I got reminded of when you were talking about how chronic stress could have led to stuff. Because I remember I didn't get COVID, but I was working for this one COVID initiative where I was working day and night to, verify resources, bring in people to either bring oxygen cylinders, this, that. And I realized that just not taking care of my health for 2 weeks, I ended up getting a very bad fever, and I was so exhausted and burnt out that I was experiencing very similar symptoms to COVID, but I did not have COVID. I tested negative. So it just made me realize that when we were not taking care of our health in general and our mental health specifically, it
Mhm.
did impact my physical health and a
Yes.
lot of things. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share actually.
Thank you for sharing. And sounds like you had a tough time during COVID, just like many of us did. But your initiative is commendable, honestly. And it does sound that there were a little issues with boundaries when it came to helping others out and just giving your all. Like most of us want to when we're helping others, of course. We tend to forget about ourselves, our health, and we push ourselves to an extreme where we end up getting sick. So, yeah, the mental burden, the physical burden does have an effect. Okay. Um, I would like to share something very personal. My both of my parents have diabetes, which is again a lifestyle disorder, and I'm predisposition to it as well. When it comes to their mental health, I can very clearly see that both of my parents are very anxious people. They tend to get panicked or worry about very little things. And to a certain point, they do also tend to have issues setting their boundaries very strongly. So I would actually like to highlight this point where when we don't um, keep our boundaries very strong, where when we don't know what is good for us, or when we are doing too much or too little, we do end up harming ourselves. We harm our emotional health, we harm our social relationships because we do too much and we expect the other person to do just as much for us. And that could lead to disappointments, that could lead to a lot of loneliness in a way. It could feel very isolating because we might think that we are we're the kind of people who we just do and we don't have anyone to do the same things for us. So the way we cope with things or the boundaries we keep have an effect on our mental health. And if it's part of our personalities, it would have a prolonged effect to a certain extent where it could be a contributing factor to lifestyle disorders. I want to ask all of you, how do you actually cope with anxiety or stress or anything which is extremely distressful? Does anyone want to share?
Hello.
Hello,
Hey, Radhika.
I'm Alvika.
Yeah. So, one thing that I do whenever I feel stressed or anxious is something that I have been doing. I don't even remember since how
Mhm.
long. Is I use humor a lot in my daily life, and that actually helps me keep sane and not get too agitated about any situation, and make me feel in control that okay, I can change the narrative of the situation, the seriousness of the situation, and how it would impact me by using humor.
Mhm. Actually, humor is the healthiest way of coping there is, especially if we go through defense mechanisms or how people cope. Humor is actually a very healthy way of coping. So that's great for you. Anyone else wants to share? I could share my own. The way I cope with anxiety or stress, I do end up stonewalling people. I isolate myself or I fall on food because it's a habit that was picked up from my own family. Because if something bad happened or someone yelled at someone and there was some sort of stress, the reward was food. That that would be just, oh, instead of I saying I'm sorry, or instead of feeling better in our reality or the real situation that we actually have, we would just fall on food, and that would make things okay for the time being. So, just like some people tend to shop, just like I am for some time now after COVID. Uh, I shop, or some people shop online because it's easy nowadays, right? So it gives you a shot of dopamine. So those are types of coping mechanisms. But yeah, there could be a lot of types of coping mechanisms that would be much more harmful. Um, that could be also a trigger for a lifestyle disorder again. Is there anyone who wants to share anything about stress, anxiety, lifestyle disorders, anything about different types of physical illnesses, if you want?
A lot of times, actually, what I end up doing is either I'll complete the work or complete or do the task of whatever is probably the cause or the reason of my anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's some task, but if it's a feeling or it's a situation that has caused it, I would actually avoid it so much that I would put myself in like binge watching something, or like not work or not get out of my room, get to work for quite a long time, and then just one fine day I would get the courage to, okay, let's just get back at life because I can't sit like this, and then I
Mm-hmm.
go back to rationally trying and solving the situation than just avoiding it. So that's what happens with me when I'm stressed or when I have anxiety.
All right. A lot of people would be relating to you because, yeah, I've been there too. Okay. Just one last thing that I will be mentioning about autoimmune disorders and how they are affected by stress or anxiety. Uh, I do a little bit of anxious research when it comes to health and different types of physical illnesses, especially if I know someone who I'm close with or a loved one has a particular physical illness, right? So I got to know most skin disorders, especially psoriasis, is especially triggered due to chronic stress or um, a very high amount of cortisol in the body. And whenever you do go to a dermatologist and you tell them that you have certain symptoms and there's a certain skin issue, especially if you have very dry skin, it usually does come from a lot of inflammation, heat in the body, and especially stress. So most of the times, whenever I do see the most common disorders that are surrounding me right now within my friend circles or family or just immediate colleagues, even all of those disorders, their trigger point was extreme stress or the inability to manage that stress. So I do stress upon the fact that you have to know how to manage your stress. You have to know how to calm yourself down the way you need to, not the kind of calming methods that's only written in on Google or the ones I told you about. Could just try out different methods, whatever works for you. Stick to it. Go through your options, find a calming way or grounding technique that helps you out because You have to know how to calm your nervous system down. You have to know how to get out of that fight or flight situation, because in the long run, it's only harming you. You're not in any threatful situation, or you don't need to stress upon the things that are actually surrounding you. It's not as important. Your health is more important. So, thank you for joining the session. If anyone has anything to share, you can share it right now. If not, thank you for joining, and I really hope you stay healthy and take care.
Thank you, Radhika.
Thank you, Mehak.